Everybody's Big Ed here, and on tonight's show, I have a definitely exciting guest. I have Mike Ruehle here to my left. Actually, this is what I used to look like about 25, 30 years ago. Sorry, Mike, didn't mean to insult you like that. But anyway, Mike
It's
is
okay.
actually, I wanted to share, I wanted to share this information with you guys tonight because Mike and I are actually colleagues in the industry. He works with a lot of flippers. He is a home flipper himself, and give a lot of great information, especially for you guys out there trying to invest in a home. So, Mike, how did you get involved in real estate, and also tell us a little bit about what you do?
So I was in banking for 6 years, and I went into outdoor advertising for about 2.5 years, and kind of made a transition out of nowhere in 2017, and took my real estate class, took my license test, and all that stuff. Started on a team, and in the beginning of 2018, and just kind of took it from there. Was on two different teams for my own personal reasons. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I think it was a good starting point. And I've been an individual agent ever since like the beginning of 2019. So I've dealt with a lot of investors, and I'm an investor myself. So I mean, that's kind of in a nutshell.
Yeah, so somebody like just starting out wants to get involved in investing in real estate. Like, what would you tell them?
I would tell them it's not a. I would tell them it's a good idea to invest in real estate. I think it's a great long-term investment. I would tell them it's not as easy as it seems. Definitely not as easy as the TV shows. You might get a clean flip here and there. Don't get me wrong, but like it's very hard to become very efficient. It's very hard to get all the numbers correctly. There's not a lot of great contractors out there. The few that are very, I would say, overworked. And price of materials going up and all that, lack of inventory. I mean, it's tough to do it right now, and it's tough to get houses. I'm kind of meshed in with a lot of the wholesalers and stuff, which is most of the houses I've been getting from versus on the actual MLS. Whereas when I first started, there was tons of houses that were for closure, short sales, whatever. That were just listed in the MLS and you could just buy them, but they're
So
just few and far
what's a
between.
wholesaler? It's like not everybody knows what wholesaling is. They might have heard that in other.
So wholesaling is basically like the ideal wholesaler is someone who will approach like a non MLS seller through whatever marketing means. If they're advertised, whatever, they eventually they're in contact with the owner of the company. So if I'm the wholesaler and you're the end buyer, I'm going to contact the seller. Let's say I want to buy, I agree to buy their house for $100,000, but and with the intention to flip or keep it as a rental or whatever. But I would wholesale it and make a quick 20, $30,000 and not do any of the rehab.
Mhm.
If you're willing to buy it for 120, 130, I basically just take the difference. So basically I use an assignment clause, or it's an assignment, which is like a separate addendum. And my, not to get too technical, but my contract with the seller has to say like and or assigns, or that this contract's assignable, otherwise you can't do it. So basically it allows me to assign it. So it gets a little bit tricky where some sellers don't know what's going on. Some wholesalers do it and they're not actually planning to buy the house. So if their end buyer ends up not falling, coming to fruition or whatever, they kind of leave the end seller in the dust. Like they kind of leave them on the short end of the stick. But that's basically what happens. Just basically,
Yeah.
I'm agreeing to buy the house from the seller, but I'm willing to like offload it for X amount of dollars, and I'll use that as based on assignment. So an assignment fee, whatever the difference is between what you're paying and what I'm paying what I'm paying the seller.
Yeah, because a lot of times, like when you see those signs and you see 1,000 of them all over the driving down the highway on if you're up in the Cherry Hill area, 70, 73, or wherever, we will
Mm-hmm.
buy your home, we will pay cash. Is that pretty much a wholesaler that, does that? Or is that like,
I've never gone around and called those numbers.
right?
It's funny. I probably should. But I would just say this, that like a lot of wholesalers that get into the business, and I'm not talking like the bigger name people, but a lot of the wholesalers that get into the business, um, they have no intention of actually buying the house. So it's a little bit deceptive to say, hey, we buy a house for cash. Now, at the end of the day, the seller agrees to a price and they get that price, then that's the wholesaler did their job. But What some wholesalers will do is they'll negotiate a price that they know they can't either pay for or that they can't assign it
Mhm.
for anything higher. Like if it's worth 150 and they get it for 155, no one's going to pay 100. Like realistically, no one's going to pay 175. So then they'll go back to the seller, weeks later or whatever, and be like, oh well, I didn't, our funding partners or this and that weren't able to get this done, or we found the inspections. This they try to beat you up after the fact. And some people, sometimes it's realistic. Like sometimes you just find stuff, but sometimes they know and that it's priced too high and they're just trying to get in the door. I mean, everyone's got their own tactics, but I would just say like my biggest pet peeve is with wholesalers that don't have any intention of actually buying a house.
Okay.
They're being a little, you know what I mean? Or they don't really have solid end buyers too that are going to buy the house. It's kind of like locking up the seller's house in a contract, which could have like a lot of like extensions kind of like automatically implied in it. It can get a little hairy, but it's not all like deceptive on like the wholesaler. I'm not trying to say that, but there's a lot of issues with the sellers too. Like I mean, I was supposed to buy two from a wholesaler that I know, I'm friends with, and like literally the day, 2 days before closing, the end seller just disappeared.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I
That's
already had money tied up and like all that stuff. He literally just, it's not the wholesaler's fault. He literally just bounced. He just went. So you get like judgments. We've had Camden with like $5,000-$10,000 water bills at the end. So now the seller can't sell it because they don't have that extra cash. I mean, there's all types of things that come up. It get kind of hairy. Usually the end seller is not in a great financial position, usually.
yeah. Yeah, we get
So
that, that's the thing. Like somebody's getting involved in real estate, especially, a lot of my the people that follow me, they're not deeply involved in the industry like we are. And they,
Mhm.
they want to get involved in investing. They don't know where to start. They don't know where to go. Basically I tell them, start small, and you really, really want to use your money to your advantage. And just to be able to take that mortgage and so maybe you can tell everybody if they buy one property, okay. Now you get bought that first property, and usually you have to put like what 20% down, and you want to get that rented out if you have your own rentals or whatnot.
Mhm.
How can they build upon that? I know you're not a mortgage person, but I know you've done many with rentals before.
So I use the Burr method, which is buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. So basically, the gist of it, without going into too many details, is you buy it for 100, you put 50 in it. Now it's worth 200. So you have 150 into it, and it's now worth 200. You can refi up to 75%, which is 150. So now all the money you've used, you now recoup back in your pocket. You have $50,000 of equity and you have a cash flowing property. So like let's just say after that 150, you're paying 1,500 a month and your rent's 19, you're making $400 of profit on top of your mortgage, interest, taxes, and insurance payment, and you're recycling the same money. So you don't have to keep like saving 40, 50, $60,000 to just put down on a rental property. You're basically creating equity by rehabbing the houses
And it's
yourself.
usually
And
what's
I don't mean
so,
physically, I just mean like whether you could still subcontract it. I just mean that like you're the one who's buying it in disrepair, fixing it up, creating equity, and then putting it so you're not necessarily getting the cash back in your pocket, but now you have an asset with equity.
and you could borrow it against that equity. And usually, what 6 months or so, you can usually
I've
do
I've
that.
never I've never done borrowing against the equity itself. I mean, I'm sure that there's lenders and stuff that would, you know, take take a chance, but like if you have a mortgage on it, they have a first lien position. So, it would have to be a second tier. And most it depends on how much equity you have. I mean, if some of these people like refied before COVID and now the house might be worth double. So now they might have 60% equity, in which case, yeah, like most banks will lend at least up to 75% on like a home equity line or 80% on a primary home equity line. So I haven't actually done that trying to borrow against the current equity I have. It actually never occurred to me. So something I got to think about now that you
Yeah, I mean,
mentioned
I
it.
did that years ago where I
Hmm.
had one property, and then I before I ever got into real estate, and then that's what I did. And there was the values, but their values were skyrocketing so fast that you could actually do that. So within 6 months' time, we actually bought one, took the value. We actually got it at a good price. Somebody rented it out. Boom, boom. Then we were fortunate enough that the price went up to a certain amount, and then we could get 80% value, and then we put like 20% down the next one. So it's a numbers game, and that's why I try to tell people there's many ways that you can do investing. I know a lot of people, they see the glory and the glamour of flipping homes, and a lot of times where it's just something as simple as, oh, it's just paint and it's paint and carpets, and it's
There's
not.
so much, but not even that, like just the cost of doing stuff. It's a constant evolving process. It's harder to price things out these days because of the way inflation's going up. Um, what used to be a $6,000 roof is now 10, or what used to be a $10,000 kitchen is now 15.
Hmm.
Yeah, just different things. And I'm not even talking about just price of material. I mean, that's obviously going up too, but the price of labor, because there's just not that many good guys that are doing hard labor these days. So
Yeah.
obviously, high demand, they're asking for more. So you got to pay them what you got to pay them. You know what I mean? I tend to deal with the GCs, the general contractors who handle the subs. So I don't deal with the subs as much. I mean, I sometimes do, depending on the project. Like, I have electricians, I have an electrician, I have HVAC guy, I have floor guy. I'd rather just deal with one person. It makes my life a lot easier. Um, and I'm able to like scale more. But, sometimes you have to, just kind of look at the price of everything and try to find a way to make things a little bit cheaper. I mean, it's just hard these days.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some guys sometimes when they look and when they have more than one property, or they do a couple properties, they sometimes buy stuff in bulk. That you can almost tell that I'm just watching you float here, but it's funny.
I was trying to put I was I, I was trying to put my phone up on this little gadget thing I have that's gonna
Yeah.
like sit in my truck because I'm not actually in this beautiful kitchen behind me. And
Really?
it's a beautiful kitchen, okay, and it's a great kitchen, but
It's
I'm
a lovely
actually right
kitchen.
now I'm parked off of Haddonfield Berlin Road. Okay, I'm in my truck. I'm in my truck talking to you. I'm trying to get this phone locked and loaded up against this little gadget I have here, but it's not holding it. It's not strong enough.
It's not strong enough. All right.
So
Yeah, I just ruined it. But anyway, where were we with this? So we're talking about, like, I just see, when certain guys, they flipped homes, it's one of theirs just by they had the same materials in three, four, five of the same
yeah.
houses. So
Mm.
there's cost benefit analysis. So maybe just to wrap that part of it up, I mean, talk about like what ARV means. What is ARV? I mean,
After repair value. So
right.
basically, like everyone's got to make money. I mean, I feel like everyone thinks that flippers just make tons of money. And sometimes you make a great amount of money, but sometimes you don't. And then some, especially for the headache, and sometimes you make nothing. Sometimes you lose money.
Yeah.
Obviously that's not the goal. I've been on all ends of the spectrum before, and I obviously make money a lot more now than I lose money. I mean, you might have like one off where you don't do well or whatever, but for the most part, I mean, at this stage of the game, we shouldn't be losing money. But it's there's just headaches. I mean, listen. I went to go list this house that I have in Belmar. Like literally, the guy who lived there had all this stuff in the basement. Nothing smelled musty or anything like that. I was rehabbing it for 2 months. Basement was fine. I go to list it. Sump pump breaks, water in the basement. Like after it was already live. So now I'm in this like mad rush. I was down there like cleaning up the water at midnight on a weekday. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's just
Wow.
stuff that and like if it happened before, I would have just been like, all right, well, it's an extra cost. You factor that stuff in, stuff happens. You can't like freak out over every little thing or you're just in the wrong business. But I'm like, now I got to delay the pictures. Then the water came back after the pump's there because there's actually another issue too. So there was just like, and none of that was shown before. So it all happened at like a last minute. So, yeah, if you're willing to like drive down 25 minutes to a house that you own and bring a mop or bring paper towels and clean up the floor by yourself in a basement.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I don't try to scare people away. I mean, that's not what normally happens, but it can happen.
Yeah, but a
Um,
lot of times, especially, working as a buyer's agent, as I've done many times before, you go into this house, it's a flipped house, you just know. You say
yeah.
whether everything is brand new, quote unquote, you see go in the kitchen, everything else. But what I always say to my clients is, look, we want to start looking under the hood first. You want to
Hmm.
make sure that we get down. If there's a basement, you check to see if there's any water intrusions coming in the basement. You want to look at the hot water heater. You want to look at the mechanicals if they've been updated. If they skip on those things and you have great countertops, that could possibly be a problem. You want to go out and try to look at the roof and things like that. So
Yeah.
so when you guys flip, I mean, do you usually try to get the mechanicals up and running first? I mean, and not so much up and running, but I mean, like, how do you make that decision on what
I
to do?
normally replace mechanicals because normally they're just older.
Right.
But if they're within 10 years, then I will send somebody out there and have them take a look. If let's just say there was a AC unit that needed a new compressor and the compressor costs 2,500, but a new AC unit, it's because the compressors are so expensive, but a new AC unit costs 3,500. I'm just gonna replace it. Like replace
Yeah.
the unit. Um, if the roof's 10 years old, it's in good condition, I'm not gonna replace it just to say it's new. It just depends on the situation. So like this house in Belmar had dual unit. So I had my HVAC guy go there and take a look at all of them, and he said, one of them needs a new coil, one of them is shot. So on the AC side, so he replaced the one, put a new coil in the other, and that's that. So I have him do it in advance. But otherwise, as long as it's not like brown with rust, or it like obviously looks like it's not working, I'm probably obviously I'll try to keep it, but most of the time in my experience, I've replaced it just because they're normally old and not taken care of.
Yeah. I mean, because not only I know you've also worked as you're an agent also, like just as I am.
Hmm.
And then when a lot of times when we go advise people, we say like look at the systems and things like this. It's
Hmm.
it's important that you do that. And then the value of getting that home inspection, we tell people a lot of times because in the last year or 2 years or whatever, people are buying houses without getting inspections. And I just think they definitely need to do that, especially even if you're flipping a house or something like this. So that's just
Yeah,
something that.
and like with this water situation in Belmar, I mean, one and like as the seller, like it's one thing if I knew the sump pump was broken before and saw a little bit of water when I first bought it and then fixed the sump pump. We go through all this rain, I haven't seen any water. I can say like, yeah, like the sump pumps obviously that was the issue, right? So the sump pumps are new. Now after I've listed it, people see it after the sump pumps have been in. Now it's like I have to disclose it, like, oh, there was water here. So now I have to any buyer and any buyer's agent is probably gonna want to see, all right, there's a waterproofing company here. So like that's what I was doing today. It was meeting with a waterproofing company to put in at least a partial um
French
perimeter
drain
drain,
kind
French drain in the basement.
of.
There's just other things too, like the guy, the prior owner had kind of like, so even though I got the sump pump fixed, I kind of did it in a rush with somebody who was able to get out there right away. But I didn't ask him to like look at the pipes because he was just fixing, they had seemed to be working before. So like why would I have him like look at the pipes? Well, come to find out, bring the waterproofing guy out there. He's like, well, number one, it's tied into the sewer line, and that's technically illegal, although it's kind of stupid if you think about it logically, but you're supposed to just have it kicking out to the outside instead of the like into your own yard instead of the sewer line. And then one of the pumps, like the first one that broke, was going uphill. So kind of makes sense why it probably was on its last legs because it was overworking because the pipes were not pitched right. So like you start finding other things because maybe the prior owner did it himself, jerry rigged some stuff, whatever you want to call it. So you just kind of like one thing can lead to another. Those are the kinds of things you can't, you try to foresee them. You go through the house, test things out, but like you got a house as dry as a bone for 2 months, plus all the time that you were there before when you're under contract and all that. It seemed dry. We go through all this rain, and then the day you go to list it, all of a sudden there's water in the basement. So
Yeah.
it's, but as a seller, even if you're shady, which I'm not obviously, but even if you're shady, like there's like a disclosure aspect of it where now, okay, yeah, there's water there. I have to like say something and show that I'm either not going to fix it or I'm going to fix it. Otherwise, you're open to lawsuits after the fact. Obviously, I'm proactive and I'm not shady and I'm not a shyster. I want it to be the right product and all that. But so I want to get it done in advance to get it done by a licensed person. But
Mhm.
it's just one of those things that you just never know. So all of a sudden, between the two sump pumps, the perimeter drain, and all this stuff, it's like there's $3,500 gone.
Yeah,
So you can't get caught up in all those like finite dollars. I mean, that might sound like a lot to some people, but hopefully, once you flip enough houses, it's just part of your extra that you already budgeted in. I always say like add at least another 10, 15.
yeah, but that's what
So
you do. I
but
mean,
that's
right
what you do. You
there,
have to.
yeah,
There's always something that happens. I'm not even putting bad juju out there. There's always something that happens like
well,
that.
but that's the thing. So right now, and this will be before we almost sign off. The thing is, you always have to pre-plan while you're doing this. You go in, you check the house, you write down, take all your notes, you come up with the best laid plan possible, and that's what you do. And then you develop a budget off of that, correct? And then you have a general knowledge of how much things are going to cost, but you never know. And that's what you just mentioned. What happened in the house of Belmar? Sometimes those things happen too. So do you like pad those things into your budget or try to the best way you can?
Yeah, like if I talk to my GC and we're like, all right, we're gonna try to be at 60, in my head, I'm at 75. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? And if it still works at 75, where it's at least like I still can make money, even if it's not as big of a problem, I'm like, it's still worth it to do it, then I'm fine with it. I mean, obviously I don't want to go to 75 because if you start saying 75 is your base, then you're gonna be 85 or 90, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but if I'm at 60, I'm always in my head thinking 70, 75. It's just happens. I mean, I've
Yeah, but if that
not talking about
happens,
water too much, but like I've had a house before in like in Defford that I flipped where, didn't even have a basement, a crawl space, but it was filled with mold and it had a ton of water issues.
hmm,
Fire water perimeter drain and mold remediation. It cost me like 2,500 for the mold remediation and the vapor barrier, and another like $4,500 for the perimeter drain sump pump. So like next thing you know, you're at seven thousand
7 grand.
dollars just like
Yeah,
that. So you have to factor those things in.
yeah. They always have to like because that's what a lot of flippers you go in to see if they don't have the experience. You see a guy that does either shoddy craftsmanship, or you go in there and like the job's not done. So yeah, definitely understand that. So all right,
And
Mike.
even the guys, I'll just say this real quick. Even though like I'm an experienced guy, obviously, and like I use experienced contractors, like they're also only human, and then they're using like when they scale up, they need to use more guys, and then their eyes are on them less, so then like more mistakes or shoddy work can happen. You know what I mean? So even if they are, and that it just can happen. So just stuff like that. It's not always indicative of like a cheap like flipper. I mean, like sometimes it's just you got a lot
This
going
stuff
on.
happens. Yeah,
You know what I mean. So you hope that it doesn't, but you could try to fix it and do the best you can.
yeah. I mean, I could definitely. That just makes sense. I mean, do the best you can for your people. And so, if somebody
Mhm.
wants to get in contact with you, how would they do that, Mike?
I mean, they can just reach out to me on my cell. I think the easiest thing would just be to text me.
Yeah, I'll
Six
put your
six oh
info.
nine. Yeah, 609-472-0344.
Okay. And then tonight you're just coming back from the being in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu where you are, what are you, a third degree black belt or something like this?
Yeah, I wish. I wish.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish. No, I'm
Yeah.
a three stripe blue belt right now, so it's takes a long time to be a black belt, man. It's wild,
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah. Well, that's good though, and you're
Yeah,
also
it's fun.
you're the senior impersonator.
Some say the greatest. Okay, some say it's the greatest impersonation the world's ever seen. Okay, nobody does impersonations like me.
Impersonations.
Impersonations. I'm gonna make up my own big beautiful word.
Yeah. That's like the other guy does.
Who?
The other guy,
Oh,
the president.
pressure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well,
Where
hey,
am I,
it was
where
good.
am I supposed to go, Nancy?
comes again.
Jill, can you change my diaper?
We're having some fun here, guys. Well, listen, Mike, always great hanging out, and thanks for coming on the show. And a lot of great information tonight, so I appreciate it.
All right, thanks, bro. You be good.
All right, you
Thanks
too.
for having me.
All right, thanks.
All right.